a beginner or intermediate learner in Japanese and always wanted to learn Japanese with games, but don't know exactly how to do this efficiently, then I hope this guide will help you. Hello you lovely souls out there, it's Lynn, and welcome to the third and probably last part of this series, How to Learn Japanese with Otome Games, and finally, how to actually use otome games to learn Japanese. This method also applies to any other type of games. It's just that I personally prefer to play Japanese otome games or visual novels, but of course you can play Animal Crossing or Mario or Fire Emblem in the same way. To make this a useful video, I will sum some parts up of the other videos, but please do check them out if you want to know more about choosing and buying Japanese games. Step 1. The Japanese game. For this, refer to the other videos or just change your language settings on the Switch and you're good to go for every Nintendo game basically. Or check your other games whether they have a language change option if you don't want to import games and spend a lot of money on them. Step number 2. Know your level. Know your Japanese level and choose the games accordingly. Make sure that you can understand at least, I would say 50% of the game without looking too much up. Easy beginner games would also be like Animal Crossing, farming games, and basically every slice of life or school setting otome game. On top of that, I would recommend that you know some basic grammar. Like, for example, have completed, preferably, the both Genki books, Genki 1 and 2, or any basic elementary Japanese beginners grammar book. Or, of course, have a Japanese grammar dictionary at hand if you like looking things up constantly, and don't mind stopping your reading flow by trying to understand what they want to tell you. Basically, I would just recommend know some elementary grammar points. But the level you choose for a game might also depend whether you choose to read intensively or extensively. Intensive reading means that you really concentrate on the content and the language, like the choice of words, and try to understand each grammar construction and why was it chosen in the specific situation. It's more like the learning you do with a textbook, really concentrated, and you consume less content. On the other hand, extensive reading is kind of more about enjoying content and not so much about actively studying. You will be okay with missing one or two words, but rather focus on getting the gist of the story and understanding and having fun, and not so much on explicitly learning something. Extensive reading approach goes a bit hand in hand with an implicit learning process, whereas the intensive reading is more similar to an explicit learning process. Both approaches are fine, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You can even do both, like when I do the translation videos for you, it's for me definitely intensive reading and explicit learning because I look up every word to be sure I translated it correctly. I look up every grammar construction so I can explain it. But when I read for myself, for enjoyment, I of course look up many words because I don't know so much. But I'm fine with just getting the gist of it and with understanding 50%, unless of course it's a romance scene, then I need to know everything, every little detail. It's also generally advised to do intensive reading only for smaller bits of time because it can be exhausting and you can learn very, very much. Whereas extensive reading you can do for longer periods of time. That's why it's advised to choose a material for extensive reading. You should choose a material that is lower or at your level, whereas for intensive reading you can choose a material that is higher than your level. I personally don't stick to those recommendations. I read extensively with material I don't understand at all, and I'm happy with that. That might lead to a stronger learning curve. Because if I look up every word, every time, someday I will know it. In a few hundred years maybe, in a few hundred games maybe, but I'm fine with that. Again, there's no right or wrong approach. I just want to give you the information. Those are those distinctions that are generally made, so you can make a conscious decision about how you want to create your language learning experience with games. Third, read. Just start and see how far you can get. Don't be intimidated by all the kanji, all the vocabulary, all the grammar you don't know. From my personal experience, I know when reading, especially kanji, after 2 minutes, your eyes start really hurting because your eyes are unused to seeing all all these scribbles, all these kanji, all these words, and it's really, really exhausting. But I promise, after doing this for some time, you'll get used to it, and your eye will hurt less, your head will hurt less, and you will definitely become better at it. When you find a game that's really suited for you, that's really, really fun to read, and possibly no matter how difficult it will be, if you're having the fun and enjoyment, you will just keep reading for hours. And if nothing works, just choose the Google Translate camera option and let Google Translate do the job. And fourth, the important part, the dictionary. For iOS users, I would recommend Jisho because it has a handwriting function already pre-installed. And for Android users, I personally use Takaboto Japanese dictionary. It's one of the first that appears when you just type Japanese dictionary in the Play Store. But then, how do we enter kanji? Because radicals are strange and we don't understand them, and it takes a long time to look up, oh, there's mouth, and there's a person, and what? I show you how I do it. And it's really easy. You just go to your Google keyboard settings and add additional keyboards, and in the Japanese section you will find this tegaki, this handwriting option. And then what you do, you have your dictionary of choice, and then you can just type, for example, I explained the word ware. Oh, wow, me, oneself, okay. So you saw it was super fast and you can just look it up easily. The other positive effects are you hone your writing skills, your kanji writing skills, and your active learning by writing them repeatedly when you always looked them up because ware is a strange word and you have never seen it before. And then my most beloved step, you create a separate vocabulary list for each game or each book you're reading. So you can always connect the words to the source and try to remember, in which sentence was it used, what did I feel when I saw this word, and this helps you remember and feel engaged in your learning material. After you've created a separate list for each game, then you need to decide which words do you actually want to add to this list. I just went for any word, I don't care, I want to learn everything. That is a possibility, but might be more suited for advanced learners. So maybe I should have done it differently and just add those words to my list that I saw at least 2 or 3 times or even more, depending on how basic my vocabulary should be. Especially as a beginner, if you don't choose the words you want to remember wisely, you will end up that your beginner's vocabulary is blocked by words like haywire. You won't need this in daily Japanese life. So just choose the words that feel personal to you and that feel useful to you, so you're more motivated to actually learn and remember them. Most dictionaries have a list export function, and then you can import your exported list in the vocabulary learning softwares, the spaced repetition software of your choice. Or if you use Takaboto Japanese dictionary, it comes with an integrated option to just move all your listed words to Anki. And this goes as follows. In the home screen, you go to your lists, say for example Fiore, and then you go to options and send to Anki Droid. Of course, for that you have to Anki installed, and that's why I love Android, because you have Anki for free and this handy dandy functions, Anki Droid settings. And there you can choose how your words will be imported to Anki. And what I really like, you can add the pitch accent. When you have your list imported to Anki, if you see the answer, you have all the kanji, you have the kana, you have the pitch accent, you have an example sentence. So if you don't remember in which context it was used, you can just use their example sentence, and in Anki they link it back to Takaboto, and then you can look up the word, look up the kanji, look up the pronunciation, the forms. It works really well and it really helped me learn a lot of vocabulary really fast. There is a YouTube channel that specializes on learning with stories. I link it in the description, and he basically says just read and the language will come to you naturally. And that's what I'm trying also at the time, because this whole active learning approach doesn't really fit my schedule. I don't stay as motivated all the time to actively learn. So I just try to read as much as I can, enjoying sweet otome content and content that I'm actually interested in, and not the basic beginners texts like Yuki goes to university. there she meets a friend. I'm not interested in this story, I'm sorry, Yuki. Then in the evening, when I'm a bit tired or when I have some downtime, I go through the Anki deck and just try to learn as many vocabulary words as I can. So that is how I learn Japanese with otome games. And you have seen all the steps from researching and finding the best suited game, to buying, and now to actually learning and memorizing the vocabulary. I hope this approach might be also useful for you. If you have more ideas on how to enhance our language learning journey with otome games, visual novels, or other games, and how do you approach learning Japanese passively by reading, I'm happy to hear your thoughts about it.